that are coming from different countries and of course from the EU mission.
So our mission, three very important principles. This is independence, impartiality, and last but not least, non-interference.
Good morning, viewers. Today we have a very prominent and distinguished guest, the Deputy Chief Observer of European Union Election Observation Mission, Mrs. Intelase. We'll talk about its mission, how it works, and the way it observes the process. These discussions comes in a time just a week before Bangladesh is highly anticipated its 13 national parliament elections. Intelase, thank you for being with us, and thank you for joining with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to explain what exactly are we doing here and how we are working. Thank you.
How are you doing in Bangladesh?
It's excellent. I would say we are very privileged to be here and to observe these very historic elections that are unfolding before our eyes, and probably observing how the participation in elections are going, who are the actors, how they are preparing for elections that are to be held on the 12th of February.
Okay, I would like to start with could you please give your overview to our viewers that what EU election observation mission basically does?
So our election observation mission starts with an invitation. The European Union received an invitation from the Election Commission of Bangladesh as well as from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to come and observe these elections. Then the European Union every year receives many invitations. However, only some 8 or 9 are being accepted. And invitations that are accepted means that the European Union considers the country as a very important partner and a friend. So the European Union accepted the invitation and decided to send a large mission to observe these historic elections. Our mission is led by Chief Observer, who is a member of the European Parliament. Then, in late December, the European Union decided to send a small expert team first to set up the mission. This is the so-called core team experts that are based here in Dhaka. In mid-January, we received our long-term observers, 56 long-term observers from all European Union member states as well as from Canada, Norway and Switzerland. These observers were briefed here in the capital, and then they were sent out to observe the election day preparations as well as the campaign in all 64 administrative districts of Bangladesh. Now we are entering the last week before the elections, and as we speak we are receiving short-term observers, namely 90 observers coming from Europe, who will be again briefed and deployed all across the country to see the election day proceedings.
Okay, as you were talking about the delegation and the observers that are coming from different countries and of course from the EU mission. So what is the difference basically between the long-term observers and the short-term observers?
Long-term observers are deployed based on the European Union's long-established methodology that requires a holistic assessment of this electoral process, which means that it's not only observed here in the capital, but all across the country. And the long-term observers been following how the election administration is preparing for elections, how candidates are campaigning, what kind of campaign events are taking place. So this is their mandate on the ground. Every week they produce a report that's been sent here to the capital, and our analysts are looking at these reports, consolidating the reports and forming a nationwide assessment. Short-term observers will increase our numbers on election day, means that we will be able to cover all electoral constituencies, be present in polling stations across all electoral constituencies, and they again will report how the election day is unfolding to us, to the capital, and then we collate this information, and 2 days after the elections our chief observer will hold a press conference during which he will announce what is the assessment of these elections. And when we speak about the assessment, we are assessing this electoral process against the national law, how the national law that governs elections being respected by the electoral stakeholders, and we are also assessing this electoral process against international standards that Bangladesh has adopted, international standards for democratic elections.
Oh, okay, just you mentioned the national law. So do you mean the national law of Bangladesh?
Yes, exactly.
And of course, the international law to
Exactly.
okay.
And then we have a legal analyst who compares the extent to which the national law is aligned with the international standards that Bangladesh has signed up to.
How long your delegation will be covering or staying in Bangladesh to observe this election, in the whole process?
Yeah. Our mission, the core team experts, will remain in country until the end of February. And why is that? Because, of course, the election day will be over on the 12th of February, results will be out a few days after, but it's important to see how is the election results accepted across the board, whether there are any complaints and appeals about the results or any other processes related to the elections. And then, most importantly, after the electoral process is over, our experts will also again meet with interlocutors, discuss what are the recommendations that could be made for improvement of electoral processes in Bangladesh for future elections, because as we all know, there are no perfect elections anywhere in the world, and the European Union will be making some recommendations how to improve the processes.
Well, so we are a little bit curious to know about the activities that your mission, observation team will be conducting. So how basically do you collect the information from the ground, and how do you see it?
So there are two, like the long-term and the short-term observers. Long-term observers are having a questionnaires, and they are regularly meeting the election administration in the district. They are asking questions how the election preparations are going. They are present at, for example, training of the polling staff. They see how it is conducted. They see also how the voter information activities are conducted by the election commission or by the citizen observer groups. And of course, they go to rallies, they meet the candidates and listen to their views. And what is important, that as our mission is impartial, we are meeting candidates across the political spectrum and listening how they see the campaign unfolding. Then they report back here to Dhaka. We consolidate the information to form a holistic view. On election day, our short-term observers as well as long-term observers will have a questionnaire that is to assess the extent to which the conduct was done in accordance with the Bangladeshi law and how the election day unfolded. And again, these forms will be sent back to us, to the capital, where our data analyst combines all this information and that feeds into our assessment.
Beautiful, beautiful. So as you know that in this media landscapes nowadays, basically, for the misinformation and disinformation is a common phenomenon in this media sector. And in this regard, we would like to know that your mission, your observer team, how they will monitor the misinformation and disinformation during the election.
Thank you very much for this question, because you raised a very important issue that is not only pertinent to Bangladeshi elections, but to elections all across the globe. The role of social media and the role of traditional media. Therefore, our mission has two units. One is focusing on the traditional media. The traditional media monitoring means that a team of locally recruited media monitors are watching and coding the prime time time from the most prominent TV channels and analyzing how much time and space is given to each of the candidates, each of the competing parties. But most importantly, they are also looking on the quality on information that the viewer receives, whether that's accurate, whether we see there is a balanced coverage of men and women standing for elections, and whether there are any elements of hateful rhetoric. And then we have a second unit, which is the social media monitoring unit. Again, we have locally recruited social media monitors who are gathering data from the biggest social media platforms. In the case of Bangladesh, it's Facebook and TikTok primarily, and looking at the content as well as the accuracy of the content. But let me say one more thing. What the social media analyzes is not only the content and the work of the fact checkers, but also the response from the global tech companies. Because if there is not sufficient and adequate reaction from the global tech companies on this misinformation and on artificial intelligence generated information
that is called AI
information that might mislead and confuse voters, it's very hard only for the journalists and fact checkers to fight against this disinformation. There needs to be also a reaction from the global tech.
So you're gonna mean that it's a chain process of verification of the real news, I mean the real information.
Yes, that's we are looking then, for example, there is a hateful message outside, and the national journalists and the fact checkers had identified like this account is spreading very harmful content that targets women, targets minorities, or undermines the electoral process. And our analyst is also looking, so what is the reaction from Meta? What is the reaction from TikTok to these reports about this harmful content? How long it takes for them to react and either to deplatform or to take down this information? Because that's very important as well.
I guess that all of my viewers got a clear idea, and you clarified all these things that your mission conducting coming to Bangladesh. So here we'd like to know that through all this observation, what kind of information does the mission aim to share with public? How can citizens stay informed?
So, our mission work is based on three very important principles. This is independence, impartiality, and last but not least, non-interference, which means that the mission is here to observe, not to interfere into the electoral process. And yes, I described how we collect the information and what type of information we collect. And it's very logical to ask, so, and what do you do with that? It's our assessment will be made public 2 days after the elections, because then the process is completed and our assessment can't be seen as interference in the electoral process. So 2 days after the elections are over, our chief observer will hold a press conference here in Dhaka and will announce what are our findings and conclusions. And this will be also published on our website as well as on the social media accounts. And I think your viewers can also see it on the Facebook, because we will be live streaming our press conference as well.
So by your valuable insight, as I understood that you are reaffirm your commitment to the long-standing relationships with Bangladeshi people, and of course free, fair and inclusive election.
Our presence here is a commitment to the democratic process. The assessment of this process will come 2 days after the elections. But let me reassure you that if the European Union would not consider Bangladesh an important partner and friend, and if the European Union wouldn't see these historic elections as important, the European Union would not send such a large mission to your beautiful country.
Thank you very much, Antalis, for your valuable insight and this nice word that you uttered just now. And we would like to see our future understanding among European people and of course from our people. And to wrap up our session for today, would you like to convey any message for the people of our country and especially our viewers?
I think the most important message for every election, before every election, is that it's important to participate. It's important to take part in deciding your country's future. And I really hope that each and everyone who is willing to participate in these elections will have the chance to cast the ballot.
Thank you very much, Intelese, for joining with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.